They say the richest people live in the biggest houses, but some of the loneliest cries echo off marble walls. What happens when a man who's lost everything walks into the one place no heart has survived, and finds a girl who hasn't spoken in years? Keep watching, because sometimes, it's not the luxury or the loss that defines you. It's what you choose to do with the pieces. He had fought wars, buried his wife, and raised a daughter all on his own. But nothing prepared him for the moment he stepped into the mansion of cold silence, where billionaires paid thousands just for someone to survive an hour with their child. A child who hadn't smiled in years. A child who had broken every maid who dared to care. No one lasted. Not the kindest nannies. Not the strictest ones. Not even professionals who specialized in trauma. They all came in with hope, and walked out shaken, sometimes in tears, sometimes with bruises. The girl was only 7. And yet, she wielded a silence sharper than knives and eyes that screamed louder than bombs. Her name was Amara. And somewhere in the shadow of her pain, she was waiting. The mansion was towering and cold, glass and steel rising like a fortress on the cliffside. Security was tighter than any military base the man had been posted to. He was used to checkpoints and suspicion, but nothing like this. It was as if the place was built to keep people out, or perhaps to keep something locked inside. "State your name," the guard said, not looking up. "Jackson Rains." "I'm here for the position," the man answered, standing tall with his duffel bag slung across his shoulder. He looked rugged, weathered. Hands like stone. Eyes like dusk. The guard scanned him, raised an eyebrow. "You're the maid?" Jackson smirked. "I'm the caretaker." "That's what the posting said, right?" The guard hesitated, but waved him through. "Don't say I didn't warn you." Jackson walked through the gates, past hedges trimmed with surgical precision, past fountains that seemed to cry instead of pour, and up to the massive double doors. Before he could knock, they opened. A tall man in a gray suit stood there, pinched and pale, like he hadn't slept in years. "You're late," the man said. "Actually, I'm right on time," Jackson replied calmly. The man didn't respond, just turned and walked inside. Jackson followed. "I'm Mr. Langford. I run staff operations. We don't expect you to last more than an hour." "She's difficult. Violent, sometimes. Don't touch her. Don't speak unless spoken to. She may scream. She may ignore you. Just try not to cry, and don't break anything." Jackson didn't answer. He just looked up at the giant portraits on the walls. Photos of a man who looked like a king. Cold blue eyes. Strong jaw. Always alone. The billionaire himself, Victor Sterling. "Where is she?" Jackson asked. Langford sighed and pointed toward the west wing. "She's in the blue room. We've removed all breakables. The last one didn't make it 10 minutes. Good luck." As Jackson walked down the long corridor, the air grew heavier. He passed doors that probably led to ballrooms, libraries, maybe even theaters. But none of that mattered. At the end of the hallway stood a single door. He knocked once. No answer. He opened it slowly and stepped inside. The room was cold. Blue walls. White curtains that fluttered even though the windows were closed. And in the corner, under a canopy of hanging stars, sat the girl. Amara. She was tiny. Curled up. Wearing a dress that looked like it belonged to a doll. Her hair was long and tangled. Her face was turned away. Jackson didn't speak. He just looked around. He saw broken crayons, torn books, and a teddy bear with one eye missing. He walked to the far wall and sat down. Quiet. Still. He took off his boots slowly, like he was in a temple. Amara didn't move. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Then 2. Jackson remained there, cross-legged, unmoving. He didn't try to engage. He didn't flinch when she threw a book at the wall near his head an hour later. He didn't react when she screamed into the pillow. He didn't say a word. That night, when Langford came to pull him out, Jackson shook his head. "She's not done." Langford blinked. "You want to stay?" Jackson didn't answer. He turned back to Amara and sat beside the wall again. It wasn't that he knew how to fix her. It was that he recognized her silence. Because once upon a time, his daughter had stopped speaking too. Her name was Lily. And she had gone mute after the accident that took her mother. Jackson had tried everything. Doctors. Therapists. Nothing worked, until one day, he just stopped trying to fix her. He just sat. Waited. Listened. Not with his ears, but with his heart. And eventually, she spoke. He saw the same look in Amara's eyes now. That hollow stare. That anger at the world for continuing without her. So he stayed. Day 2, Amara ignored him completely. But he noticed she didn't throw anything. Day 3, she sat on the opposite side of the room, but not with her back turned. Day 4, she knocked over her juice, then watched to see if he'd react. He didn't. He just handed her a towel and said softly, "It's okay." The first words. Amara didn't respond, but she didn't look away either. By the end of the first week, Jackson had brought a small wooden box. Inside it were toy soldiers. Faded, old, but clean. He placed them in a line across the carpet. Said nothing. Amara watched, curious. He left them there. The next morning, one of them had moved. She had touched something. By the second week, Amara sat closer. Still silent. Still guarded. But she watched everything he did. The way he folded his coat. The way he opened the window just enough to let in the breeze. The way he whispered to the stars at night when he thought she was asleep. "Lily, I hope you're safe. I miss you. I'm trying here." She heard. And one night, she followed him to the window and stood beside him. Still silent. But her presence said more than words ever could. Jackson never pushed. Never asked. He was just there. A shadow in the light. A heartbeat that never rushed her. One day, he brought a guitar. It was old. Scuffed. But he played it like it was made of gold. He didn't sing. But the music was soft. Wounded. Healing. Amara sat at his feet that evening. She cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just 2 silent tears that rolled down her cheeks. Jackson handed her a handkerchief. "Music hurts sometimes," he whispered. She nodded. Nodded. It was the first response he ever got. Weeks turned into a month. Amara hadn't spoken, but she followed Jackson everywhere. Like a shadow. She even began brushing her hair when she saw him comb his. She started cleaning up after herself. She smiled. Once. Briefly. But it lit up the whole room. Victor Sterling didn't notice at first. He was never around. Always away on business, deals, power meetings. But one morning, he walked past the blue room and paused. He heard laughter. Real. Small. Gentle. He stepped inside and saw his daughter, playing. Playing with a toy soldier. Laughing as Jackson made it march across the bed. His knees buckled. He left without a word. Later that evening, he summoned Jackson to his office. The room was colder than ice. "I don't know what you did," Victor said, eyes narrowed. But she smiled. Jackson stood tall. "She did all the work. I just stayed." Victor walked to the window. You want more money? A bonus? You want a permanent position? Jackson shook his head. I didn't come here for a job. I came because someone had to see her. Victor's hands clenched. I see her. Jackson stared into his eyes. No, sir. You don't. Victor didn't respond. Jackson continued, his voice low. She's not broken. She's just, unheard. That night, Victor watched the security tapes. Not to spy, but to learn. He saw every moment. Jackson sitting quietly. The toy soldiers. The music. The handkerchief. He wept. For the first time in 20 years, he wept. Not for his fortune. But for what he'd lost. His wife. His daughter. Himself. Amara had stopped speaking after her mother died. No one had ever told the full story. She was there. She saw it happen. The accident. The blood. The screams. And her father had buried himself in work, unable to face her pain. Jackson had cracked that silence, not with force, but with patience. And then, it happened. The moment no one thought would ever come. Jackson was leaving one afternoon to get supplies. Amara ran after him. Wait, she said. One word. Wait. Her voice was small. Hoarse. But real. Jackson froze. He turned around slowly. Tears filled his eyes. Amara ran into his arms and hugged him for the first time.